listeners, and welcome back to Everyday Health Stories, the podcast where we explore the fascinating world of medical science through the power of storytelling. Today, we're diving deep into the mysterious world of your gut, specifically something called leaky gut. It's more than just a funny name, though. We'll uncover how this hidden issue can impact everything from your digestion to your brain health, and even contribute to serious conditions like, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and even cognitive decline.
It's absolutely true, Anna. Leaky gut is an often overlooked factor in many chronic health issues. And today, we'll break down the science behind it so you can, really understand how to protect your gut and improve your overall well-being.
Okay, so first things first. What exactly is this gut microbiome everyone's talking about? Like, is it, some kind of microscopic zoo in our stomachs?
It's a pretty good analogy, actually. The gut microbiome is this incredibly complex community of trillions of microorganisms. We're talking bacteria, viruses, fungi, the whole shebang, and they all live within your digestive tract.
Wow, trillions? That's a lot of roommates. So, what are they doing in there besides, throwing microscopic parties?
They're doing a lot more than partying, believe me. They're essential for pretty much every aspect of your health, from how you digest your food to how your immune system functions, even how your brain works. Think of your gut microbiome as like the control center of your body. It determines how nutrients are absorbed, how your immune system responds, and even how your brain functions. It's pretty mind-blowing, really.
Okay, so control center, got it. And what about the gut lining itself? What role does that play in all of this?
The gut lining is super important. It acts as a barrier, a selective one at that. It lets the good stuff in, like nutrients, and keeps the bad stuff out. Toxins, harmful bacteria, undigested food particles. It's a pretty sophisticated system.
So, if this gut lining is so important, what happens when it doesn't work properly? What goes wrong?
Well, that's when we start talking about leaky gut, which unfortunately is becoming increasingly common. It's also known as increased intestinal permeability, and it's basically when this barrier, this gut lining, weakens and things that should stay in your gut start leaking out into your bloodstream.
Oh, that doesn't sound good, at all. So what leaks out exactly?
Well, toxins, undigested food particles, and bacteria. And when these things get into your bloodstream where they're absolutely not supposed to be, it triggers your immune system to go into overdrive, causing widespread inflammation.
Inflammation, right. We've heard that word before. It's like the root of all evil, or so it seems.
Pretty much. Chronic low-grade inflammation is a key driver of many chronic diseases, from type 2 diabetes and obesity to autoimmune conditions and even cognitive decline.
Wow. So, how does this leaky gut actually contribute to these diseases? Do we know?
Yeah, there's been some groundbreaking research in this area. A study by Dr. Hariam Yedav really highlighted the link between leaky gut and metabolic disorders, like type 2 diabetes and obesity. They took the microbiomes from obese mice and transplanted them into lean mice.
Okay, and?
Well, the lean mice ended up developing leaky gut, systemic inflammation, and eventually insulin resistance. It was pretty clear evidence that gut permeability is a critical factor in the progression of these metabolic disorders.
So the leaky gut caused the inflammation, which then led to insulin resistance, and that's a precursor to type 2 diabetes.
Yes, and the chronic inflammation also promotes fat accumulation, making obesity even worse. So it's like a vicious cycle.
Okay, wow. So we've talked about the gut's impact on physical health, but you mentioned cognitive decline earlier, and that's really got me thinking, is there a connection between my gut and my brain?
Absolutely, Anna. There's a powerful connection between the gut and the brain called the gut-brain axis. They're in constant communication through the vagus nerve, that's like a superhighway of information, and through chemical signals like hormones and neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmitters, those are the brain's chemical messengers, right?
Yes, and get this, 90% of your serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitter, is actually produced in your gut.
No way. Seriously? So my gut is like a serotonin factory?
Pretty much. And it's not just serotonin, dopamine, GABA, other key chemicals crucial for mood, cognition, and, just overall mental well-being are also influenced by the bacteria in your gut.
Okay, so Leaky gut. How does that affect the brain?
Well, remember how we talked about harmful substances leaking into the bloodstream? Those substances can also cross the blood-brain barrier and trigger inflammation in the brain. And that can impair cognitive function, affecting memory, focus, and even contributing to, mood disorders.
So, like brain fog, difficulty concentrating, those could be signs of a gut problem.
They certainly could be. And over time, this chronic inflammation in the brain can even contribute to neurodegenerative conditions like dementia and Alzheimer's disease.
Wow, that's kind of scary. So, what can we do about it? Like, is there any way to detect these problems early on?
There's exciting research happening in this area. Dr. Hariam Yadav and his team are developing microbiome-based biomarkers, specific indicators in the gut to detect early signs of cognitive decline.
Oh, wow. So, like, a simple test could tell us if we're at risk?
Exactly. And these biomarkers could potentially replace expensive and invasive procedures like PET scans and MRI scans. So early intervention would become much more accessible.
That's amazing. So, let's talk about prevention. What role does diet play in all of this?
Diet is absolutely crucial. It's like the architect of your gut microbiome. What you eat literally determines the composition and health of your gut.
So, like, what kind of foods are good and bad for our gut?
Well, diets high in fat, sugar, and processed meat, think fast food, sugary drinks, they promote the growth of harmful bacteria and reduce microbial diversity. It's like having a garden overrun with weeds.
Right, right. And what about helpful foods?
Fiber-rich, plant-based diets, think vegetables, whole grains, legumes, those are your gut's best friends. They nourish the beneficial bacteria, creating a thriving, diverse ecosystem. It's like adding fertilizer and beneficial insects to your garden.
Okay, that makes sense. So, more plants, less junk food. Got it. What about fruit? Fruit's healthy, right?
We've been programmed to consider fruit as part of a healthy diet. But, and this is important, I have to give a warning about consumption and overconsumption of fruits because of the natural sugar content. Certain fruits, particularly those high in fructose like mangoes, grapes, and, dried fruits too, can contribute to blood sugar spikes and insulin resistance if eaten in excess.
Oh, I see. So, moderation is key?
Even moderation sometimes is too much, especially for people with type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, or insulin resistance. They really need to be mindful of their fruit intake.
Okay, good to know. So, what about the Mediterranean diet? I've heard that's really good for gut health.
It is. The Mediterranean diet, rich in, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats like olive oil, it's a fantastic foundation for a healthy microbiome. It reduces inflammation and provides a diverse range of nutrients for those beneficial bacteria. But be careful because Mediterranean diet do include fruits.
Okay, so lots of plants, healthy fats, and watch the sugar, especially with fruit. Got it. Now, I'm dying to know more about these probiotics and postbiotics.
Right, probiotics and postbiotics. So, probiotics, you've probably heard of them. They're live microorganisms like, beneficial bacteria that confer health benefits when you consume them. You can find them in things like yogurt, kefir, and, supplements.
Okay, what about postbiotics? What are those?
Postbiotics are, they're kind of like the byproducts of probiotics. They're non-living bacterial byproducts or metabolites. Think of them as the waste products of those good bacteria, but don't let that turn you off. These waste products actually have similar health benefits to probiotics.
Interesting. So, like, they do the same thing, but they're not alive? Why does that matter?
It matters because postbiotics are more stable and easier to deliver consistent benefits. You see, live bacteria in probiotics, they can be fragile. They can be affected by stomach acid, storage conditions, things like that. Postbiotics, they're already, they're not alive, so they're much more resilient.
That makes total sense. So, what kind of benefits are we talking about with postbiotics?
Well, Dr. Yadav's research, the same guy who's working on those biomarkers, has shown some promising results with postbiotics. His research shows that they can strengthen the gut's mucosal lining, that barrier we talked about, which helps prevent leaky gut.
Right, the leaky gut.
Yes, and they can also reduce inflammation, that underlying cause of so many chronic diseases. And because they're not live bacteria, they're more stable and accessible. easier to get into the system.
Okay, so they sound pretty promising. Are there any like clinical applications for postbiotics?
Yes, there are. Researchers are developing postbiotic innovations to target leaky gut in all sorts of populations, from people with diabetes to athletes and even cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy. So, yeah, lots of potential there.
Okay, wow. Postbiotics sound like really promising. So, what can our listeners do, to like start improving their gut health today? Like any practical tips?
Absolutely, Anna. There's a lot our listeners can do right away to start improving their gut health. First and foremost, focus on your diet. It's the cornerstone of a healthy microbiome.
Right, right. Of course, diet is like everything.
It is. So, first, reduce those high fat, high sugar, and ultra processed foods, the usual suspects, and incorporate more fiber rich, plant based foods. Think legumes, whole grains, and leafy greens.
Okay, so like more veggies, more whole grains. Got it.
And then, don't forget fermented foods. Those are like your natural probiotic boosters. Things like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, even miso. These foods naturally introduce those beneficial bacteria into your gut.
Oh, I love kimchi. So that's good to know.
And another important thing, hydration. Lots of water. It's crucial for supporting digestion and overall gut function.
Right. Water is like essential for everything.
Totally. And then manage that stress. Stress can really mess with your gut. Things like mindfulness, yoga, meditation, those can help reduce the negative impact of stress on your gut health.
Yeah, stress is like a silent killer. I definitely need to meditate more.
It can make a huge difference. And finally, you could consider supplements like probiotics or postbiotics, but it's always best to chat with your healthcare provider first, to see what's right for you. They can help you figure out the best approach.
Wow, so many great tips. Thanks, Dr. Reddy. So, I guess it's really important to focus on prevention, right?
Right. As I often say, prevention is way better than curing. Addressing gut health early can really, reduce the risk of those chronic diseases we talked about, improve mental clarity, and just enhance your overall well-being.
Right, definitely. So, what are some key takeaways, for our listeners to really take control of their gut health?
Well, first, just take a moment to evaluate your diet and lifestyle choices. See where you can make some of those positive changes we talked about, and then stay informed. There's always new research coming out about gut health, and most importantly, remember that small, consistent changes can make a huge difference over time. It's not about, making drastic changes overnight. It's about building healthy habits that you can stick with.
Absolutely. Small changes, big impact, right? I love that.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this amazing information with us today, Dr. Reddy. This has been so insightful.
My pleasure, Anna. It's always a joy to talk about this.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Everyday Health Stories. If today's episode resonated with you and you think someone else could benefit from it, please share it with them. Spread the good gut health vibes. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes packed with actionable advice to help you live your healthiest life. You'll also gain access to exclusive content and join a community that's making positive changes one story at a time.
And please remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for any medical concerns.
Exactly. Until next time, remember, a healthy gut means a healthy you.